This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Hey team, we have a new sponsor here at the Crypto Conversation, BitGet, one of the world's leading copy trading cryptocurrency exchanges. Yes, indeed. What happens if you've got the funds to invest, but you don't have the time to keep track of the market? You still want to make smart money moves. What do you do? Well, copy trading is a popular choice for beginner traders. You can shorten your learning curve by uncovering tips and strategies from more experienced traders. BitGet's copy trading platform has over 80,000 elite traders to choose from and 380,000 followers just like yourself who are already using the BitGet copy trading platform as a potential passive income stream. All it takes is one click. You can subscribe to an elite, profitable strategist, set your limits, automate your orders, and monitor their trades. I've got some links in the show notes below. One link will take you through to the BitGet sign-up page, give you a VIP discount. So learn all about it for yourself thanks to BitGet. And now it is on with the show. My guest today is David Say. David is a professor at Stanford University and a co-founder of Babylon Chain, a blockchain that integrates with proof-of-stake chains using Bitcoin's proof-of-work security. So we'll learn all about that today. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you very much, Andy, for having me here.
It is a pleasure. Let's do what we do at the beginning, David. Just before we dive into Babylon, it'd be useful just to get a little bit of background on yourself, please. If you could just tell a little bit of your story and tell us what you've been up to in the lead up to co-founding Babylon Chain.
Yeah, so I have been a professor, an academic researcher at UC Berkeley and Stanford in my past years, and my background originally was in a research area called information theory, which was started by Claude Shannon in 1948. This is the fundamental theory underlying all communication systems nowadays, and my early research was focusing on improving the capacity of wireless communication system, like the one that everyone uses nowadays. So I participated in the wireless revolution. Some of my technology went into core wireless standards, 3G, 4G, 5G. And as wireless evolved, it becomes a more of a mature research area. And so a few years ago, I decided to look for another infrastructure area to work on, a new area. And I found blockchain as a up and coming research area. And I got very interested in the problem by reading Nakamoto's original Bitcoin white paper. And so about 4 years ago, I started a research group at Stanford focusing on blockchain consensus protocol research. Right now at Stanford, we have about 7 people doing research in this area. So in our research, we do a lot of research on consensus protocol, ranges from first Bitcoin, of course, proof of work protocol, and then branching out to proof of stake protocols. And in particular, we have a collaboration with Ethereum foundations on improving their Ethereum proof of stake protocol. So through all this research, we got a very interesting and deep understanding on both proof of work and proof of stake protocol. And the idea behind Babylon was that, hey, actually, there are a lot of interesting things you can do combining the two protocols or two types of protocol to build even more powerful protocol. And of course, the most powerful proof of work protocol is Bitcoin. And so that became our starting point of this journey, which is how to share the security of proof of work Bitcoin with proof of stake protocols.
Very good. Thank you, David. So the big idea, which, well, you've just explained it there, is essentially to use the, I suppose, the power and weight of Bitcoin as by far and away the largest decentralized, censorship-resistant proof of work blockchain in the world, orders of magnitude bigger than the next proof of work chains. So to use that security model essentially to secure proof of stake chains. That's the big idea. Why do you see as that this is a fruitful way to move forward, David?
Yeah, so I think I would like to sort of break down a little bit more about the security strength of Bitcoin.
Please.
So I think there are sort of two aspects of Bitcoin, which is very interesting. And I think looking at these multiple aspects sort of gives us a broader view on the value of Bitcoin to the entire blockchain ecosystem from a security point of view. One aspect, which you already mentioned, is that it is proof of work. It is based on physical work done by miners. And that makes it very different from proof of stake security model. And so therefore, by combining the benefit of proof of work and proof of stake, you get a much more powerful protocol. Just to give an example of what that really means is that in proof of stake protocol, typically the security is very strong in the short time frame, short term. So you confirm transactions in a few seconds. But over a longer time range, the security weakens when you start unstaking, when people start taking the stake out. Then it becomes a security limitation in proof of stake. Proof of work, like Bitcoin, is reverse. In the time frame of a few seconds, you don't get any security because physical work done for a few seconds is not much. But as you do more and more work over a longer and longer time frame, you get more and more security over a longer term. So in some sense, they are exactly complementary to each other. So combining these two sort of opposing security models is one reason why it's a good thing to use Bitcoin. So that's number one. Number two is that Bitcoin, in addition to being proof of work, is also the largest asset base, 500 billion plus. Today, I guess it's near 600 billion asset. And that is a huge asset. That's about 50% of the entire cryptocurrency market cap. And that is in itself a very strong potential source of security, particularly in the context of proof of stake, where market cap is a very important measure of security. So I would say I would break it down this way.
Very interesting. All right. Thank you, David. So how long then has Babylon been around? I suppose just give us a sense of the origin story of Babylon and how far along, I suppose, the roadmap, if you like, you are. Are you still in a testnet at the moment, exploring how this will work with various chains? I understand that you began, I think, on Cosmos. So, yeah, maybe you can explain why that is. Just bring all that together.
Yeah. So we started doing research on this problem near the end of 2021, which is about a year and a half ago, and then we went through a seed round to raise some capital to scale up this project. And we started developing, and we went through multiple architectures for Babylon on how to share the security of Bitcoin with the proof of stake world around the first half of 2022. And then we start building the system that we finally designed in 2022 middle, and then starting about September, October, we have an MVP, and then at that point, we start talking to various proof of stake chains to see which ones are particularly interested in getting Bitcoin security, and we find the Cosmos ecosystem a very good starting point for multiple reasons. One is that the Cosmos ecosystem is centered around the so-called app chain thesis, application-specific blockchains. And the idea is to build blockchains that are focused on specific applications. For example, DeFi application, for example, NFT application, for example, a stable coin. And so because of this nature of focusing on specific application, these chains tend to be relatively smaller in terms of market cap. And so therefore the security need is particularly strong. And so therefore we find that the Bitcoin security means a lot for these chains. And so we started with this ecosystem. That's number one. For technological reasons, also, they are based on this Tendermint or Cosmos SDK stack, which is a very mature, one of the most mature proof of stake stack. And in fact, many chains, even outside the Cosmos system, uses this Cosmos SDK stack. For example, Binance Smart Chain was built, Polygon was built using this stack. So we find that if we can integrate with this stack, then I think we can also branch out to using this as a starting point, branch out to other ecosystems as well. So we spent last October to a few months integrating, talking to various chains, and then we launched our testnet back in February. And now we have 28 Cosmos chains integrated on our testnet.
Got it. All right. And I understand there'll be plans, of course, to work with other chains in the future. I can understand from a proof of stake chain's perspective, or the users of that chain wanting to utilize Bitcoin, to make the proof of stake chain more secure. David, it's I imagine from one point of view, like I'm thinking really of the Bitcoin maximalist, if you like, point of view. What is their reaction to proposals such as yours? Because a lot of the time, some Bitcoiners would, I think, very much prefer, Bitcoin to be left alone, even though that's kind of a paradox of, a blockchain. The idea, of course, of a blockchain is that anyone can use it. But I'm curious, I suppose, David, as to, let's just keep it general, the thoughts from the Bitcoin community. Number one, do they welcome this? And then perhaps after that, we can talk about how Bitcoiners can potentially, this could be to their advantage. But yeah, thoughts from the Bitcoin community first, David.
Yeah, so last month, there was Bitcoin Miami. That was the biggest conference of the whole year in Bitcoin. And I attended a Bitcoin builders conference where I presented some of this work. And in general, I find the reception quite positive. And I think this is also due to the nature of the fact that this particularly past few months have been a pretty special time for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin developers development has been rather stagnant for many years. A lot of the attention has went to, for example, ecosystems like Ethereum. But in the past 6 months, due to the order nodes, in part due to the order nodes, the NFT on Bitcoin and the BRC20 token is launching, there has been a renewed interest on developing on Bitcoin. People realize that, well, Bitcoin really has a very strong brand that can be used to build very interesting applications. So there's a very strong interest right now on revisiting, building on Bitcoin, how to use the Bitcoin chain, the different aspects of Bitcoin chain in different ways. And I think given this climate, our story or our objective of sharing the security of Bitcoin, which is one aspect of Bitcoin, very important aspect in my mind, I think have quite a lot of interest. And in fact, we have been now in that meeting, we've met a few Bitcoin developers that we're now working with to try to further advance our collaboration with the developer community.
Fantastic. David, when you first read the Bitcoin white paper, when did you first read it roughly, do you think? What year roughly?
I read it in the end of, I think, the end of 2018 or the beginning of 2019, I think, yes.
And, I'm sure it was academically fascinating to you, and I'm sure you've been interested to see, the really quite quick adoption of Bitcoin. It's been, 14, 15 years or so of the Bitcoin blockchain. But, we've grown to a reasonably big market cap within that time. Obviously, it takes time to capitalize literally a new kind of money. I'd just be interested in your reflections on how you judge the success or failure of Bitcoin to this point, and how you see it evolving in the future? Do you see any particular weaknesses or threats in Bitcoin's proof of work model, both kind of technical and I guess social? Are you confident in Bitcoin's ability to continue to grow and resist attackers?
Yeah, so I think it's great that you start with the white paper and sort of introducing this line of questioning, because I think the white paper is really, in my mind, is a work of art. It is 8-page or 9-page long, and yet it explains all the key ideas. And I think the key contribution from a technological point of view, I'm basically a technologist, so I want to comment more on that angle, is really the fact that it is not really inventing any new cryptography or any new consensus ideas, but really put together a few ideas that are already known: public key cryptography, proof of work. All these are existing concepts, but they're integrating together in such a beautiful system and such a simple and minimalistic system. And I think really that's the power of Bitcoin, is the simplicity and it's minimalistic. That is why sort of 14 years, 15 years have gone by. There has never been any major attack on Bitcoin, although, as we know, many other parts of the blockchain ecosystem, the crypto ecosystem, have been attacked. And Bitcoin has never been attacked successfully, although I'm sure that many people will try to attack Bitcoin. Imagine the fame and glory you would get by being able to attack Bitcoin. And I think so that's sort of where I marvel at Bitcoin. And of course, in terms of the impact of Bitcoin on particularly many developing countries, many countries that do not have a stable currency, is really hard to underestimate. It's also hard to appreciate from people living in more developed countries with more stable economy. And I think that is definitely a contribution to the world. So switching a little bit to your second part of the question, which is sort of the future in terms of of Bitcoin and any potential threat, I think actually there is a potential threat, which I should like to point out to your audience, which is the security budget problem. I don't know, Andy, are you aware of this security budget problem of Bitcoin?
Yeah, do you mean well, essentially you're talking about the fact that due to the halvings, the miners will just effectively be paid less and less for their work over time, unless, of course, Bitcoin price appreciates significantly, which
Exactly.
it may do.
Exactly. Yeah. So because the miners, maybe just for the benefit of your audience, maybe just let me go into a little bit more detail, because miners, the incentive for miners to mine is because of the block reward plus the transaction fees. So as the block rewards get half, because Bitcoin is limited, capped at 21 million, the block reward is designed to go down by a factor of 2, halving every 4 years, roughly every 4 years. And so the block reward goes down, there will be less incentive for the miners to mine. And now the transaction fees, on the other hand, typically is usually a small fraction of the block reward. So the transaction fees by itself is not enough to sustain the cost, the capital cost and the energy cost of the miners mining. And so the concern is that as the block reward goes down, as we go through more and more halving, then eventually the hash power, the amount of work that miners are willing to do is reduced, and the security budget of Bitcoin goes down. So I think that is probably the biggest threat against Bitcoin, because the security of Bitcoin is entirely backed by the humongous hash power or humongous work behind it. So I think that problem is one actually driving reason for others and also for us to extract value from Bitcoin. So I was talking about earlier on the value of Bitcoin to the proof of stake chain, right? So proof of stake chain needs security. They pay a lot for their own security. And with Bitcoin backing them up, that will provide benefit to the proof of stake chain. But on the other hand, you can think of the other direction, which is proof of Bitcoin, as they provide more value to the rest of the ecosystem, they would also be able to use that increase in value, but to improve upon the security budget of Bitcoin to make up for the halving of the block reward. So I think that is also one reason why people are very excited about projects like Ordinals, because Ordinals increase the use of the block space, increase the transaction fees, and thereby, again, improving the security budget for the miners. So I think all this is sort of driving towards that one direction, which is somehow to increase the value of Bitcoin so that the security budget can go up, the security can remain high, and the value can remain high. So it's like a positive cycle which we're trying to maintain.
Yeah, very, very well explained, David. Thank you for that. I enjoyed that. And, as part of this is what I think you're calling the Babylon's Bitcoin staking protocol. So just explain a little bit about, how that would work, because that would be another way for Bitcoin holders to earn something here. And again, would feed into that virtuous circle that you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, so I mentioned early on that there are two aspects of Bitcoin, which is very important. One aspect is the fact that it's a proof of work chain, and the other aspect is because of the 600 billion market cap. So in the first aspect, it's a proof of work chain. And the testnet that I mentioned, we explored that by using a technology called Bitcoin timestamping. By timestamping proof of stake blocks to this Bitcoin chain, we can exploit the proof of work security, particularly the long range security, and that protects the proof of stake chain from things like unbonding and unstaking. So that's the project that we've built so far. But this protocol, Bitcoin timestamping protocol, does not exploit the second aspect, which is that it's a $600 billion asset. And so in the past few months, we have been designing another protocol, which we call Bitcoin staking protocol. This protocol is quite different from the timestamping protocol because it is now using mainly the asset. So if you think about proof of stake chain, the basic security of proof of stake chain is protected by the stake, the token that is stick on the chain. Typically, people are used to this idea that if you have a proof of stake chain like Ethereum, then it's protected by ETH. If it's Avalanche, it's protected by AVAX. Each chain has their own native token. Now, however, that is not necessarily the only thing that can secure a chain in terms of the token. It could be also a token or an asset from another chain, So this is kind of like an emerging idea that has sort of emerged in the past year, which is to use a foreign asset or to secure a proof of stake chain. So Bitcoin is the biggest foreign asset. So a few months ago, we started thinking, hey, maybe we can try to use Bitcoin, the asset, as opposed to Bitcoin, the chain, to secure a proof of stake chain. And so this is sort of the genesis of the idea of Bitcoin staking.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you, David. And, do you see, you talked before, David, about the fact that Bitcoin really is one of the few, if only, blockchains that hasn't either been attacked or had some kind of, reasonably existential flaw or bug or whatever found in it. The difference with proof of stake chains, of course, is, as you've talked about, they're much faster. Transactions can be completed and approved in a matter of seconds versus much longer with Bitcoin. The trade-off, of course, with proof of stake is, the security model is a little bit more, for non-technical people, I would describe it as a little bit more convoluted and theoretical. But yeah, do you see... I suppose what I'm trying to get at, David, is, where are we heading with all this? If we zoom out a bit and cast our imaginations forward, 5 years, 10 years, or even more, I guess we end up with some kind of multi-chain world that we live in, where a lot of different services and transactions are conducted on blockchains. Hopefully, a lot of people won't even be aware that that is happening, because the user experience will be that much better. In that kind of world, is it just a matter of we still have Bitcoin as the big daddy for really high value transactions? Some lesser value transactions can be handled by blockchains that are less secure, and somewhere everything in between can still somehow, through services such as Babylon, effectively utilize the security of Bitcoin to keep all these other chains secure as well in their own way. I hope all that made sense, David.
Yeah, so that's a really good question to think ahead about 5 years, 10-year time frame, how the blockchain world will evolve. Of course, the future is often hard to predict. Yes. So, and this is recorded, so I guess prediction is dangerous here. But I would say the following, right? If you think about sort of a token for a proof of stake chain, a token, they value the role of a token, I think, for a lot of these chains should be, in my mind, geared towards providing incentive to make the application on these chains flourish, right? So right now in a proof of stake chain, there's an issue. One issue is that the security of this chain, in a proof of stake chain is backed up by its token, staked by its token. And so therefore, to maintain the staking, you have to pay a lot of yield to this token so as to compete for the utility of this token in the context of your application. So there's kind of an unhealthy competition, and that sort of reduces the way, the evolution of your application, development of your application. So what we are saying, what I'm envisioning a world is that there will be a very small number of chains like Bitcoin or maybe Ethereum, which is a very important source of security. And there will be protocols that allow us to extract the security and use that to secure proof of stake chains, so that their token, the asset, the native asset, can be used to focus on the utility, the application, rather than their security, and leave the security to these a very big source of security. So that's how in Babylon, that's how we sort of envision this future. And that's why we're building these protocols to try to make this future closer to reality.
Yeah, makes sense. Very good. All right. Well, as we start to finish off, David, I'd be interested in just, your general thoughts. Obviously the blockchain ecosystem is a wild and crazy place. Crypto markets are very unpredictable, very volatile, but of course, absolutely fascinating. Are you confident or optimistic, perhaps is a better word? Are you optimistic about the future of all these different various blockchains? Apart from Bitcoin's security threat model or the fee model problem, anything else that kind of keeps you up at night or makes you a little bit dubious?
In the blockchain, one thing about working in the crypto area is that there's never any moment of lack of excitement, perhaps. So keeping me up all day, all night has been of course, many different events, short-term events, but I am very bullish on the long-term value of what we are building, not we only as in our team, but we as a community of building this infrastructure, because I believe that the world needs decentralization. The world needs transparency. And I think what we're building is going towards that world, the world where it's not centralized with power in the hands of a few companies or a few organizations. So that's sort of what the longer term vision or the longer term hope that drives sort of the work being done on a day-to-day basis. So if I think about sort of my early career in wireless communication, I mentioned to you, I started my career doing research in wireless communication. When we were building the infrastructure for the wireless, that was in the late 90s. That was a third generation. That was the first generation in which we start thinking about using wireless for data. Now, that was before the smartphone showed up, before the iPhone showed up. And at that time, people were also quite dubious. They said, hey, we're building all this infrastructure, but who's going to use it? What's going to be the killer use case? And now 20 years later, we look back and now everybody has a phone. Everybody has a phone. And so the impact of the wireless revolution that I was involved with, this is tremendous in changing how humans interact. And my hope is that blockchain one day will be also like that. And that's the way I'm working towards.
Yeah. All right. You and me both, David. Very good. Just as we finish off then, tell people where they can go to learn all about what you and the team at Babylon Chain are doing, who you think would be most interested in what you're doing. And of course, if you're on Twitter, please, what is your Twitter?
Yeah, so you can follow us on our Twitter handle, Babylon_chain. That's our Twitter handle. My handle is DNTSE. Be careful, there are a lot of spam accounts with some slight modification of this. The Bitcoin community is a community that we have, as I mentioned, starting to engage with last month. I'm very happy to meet with more people from the community to hear their thoughts on Babylon, on security sharing of Babylon. I would love to talk to more people, and we are actively trying to engage with as many people as we can. And actually talking with you is part of this process. So thank you so much, Andy, for having me here.
It is a pleasure, David. Thank you for coming on. One final question for you, slightly controversial. Let's see what you say, though. In 5 years' time, which chain has the bigger market cap, Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Bitcoin.
Yeah. So from and your view, David, would that it would be for the good of crypto in general, for Bitcoin to stay number one, if you like, and yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it will be the only chain. I think Ethereum will also exist.
Of course.
But I believe in the minimalism of Bitcoin. I think that's the real power of Bitcoin.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you so much, David. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on the show. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you very much, Andy.
All right, there you go. That was David Say from Babylon Chain. Yeah, and of course, Stanford University. Yeah, fascinating. I mean, David, obviously, extremely smart guy. Just, yeah, fascinating that you got people like David, devoting their precious research time and brain power, I suppose, to, really getting deep into the security models of obviously Bitcoin and of course proof of stake chains as well, and figuring out ways to utilize each other to make them all stronger. Man, absolutely crazy. So yeah, fascinating. If you want to know more, as David said, babylonchain.io, but of course a link will be in the show notes. I just actually find it reassuring that there are, good, nice people. You can tell that, David is a good, nice person, good, nice, smart, honest people like David that are really doing their best to fight for Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatever else, Cosmos, to try and improve these chains just for the benefit of the world, really. I think that's important. Great to see. Hope they succeed. All right. We'll leave it there. That is another episode. Thank you for listening. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. But that is today's show. Thanks, team. Bye for now.